The first thing you're going to do is grab some fresh magnolia leaves, and I'm going to lay about 2/3 of them going in one direction, and these are all going to go on top of that piece of floral wire. Once they're in place, you can take that wire and wrap it around the stems that you have, and what I did is I secured them with a wire, and then I came back through with a piece of pipe cleaner. I then also used an extra pipe cleaner, looped it through the back to create the hook essentially on which this will hang. I also had some wide ribbon, so I decided to create a bow for the center of my swag, and this is also going to cover up the place where all those limbs are gathered.
This project starts out with a wire coat hanger, and I am going to take it and I am pulling it. Now I'm going to take a block of floral foam, some zippy ties, and I am going to attach the floral foam to the wire hanger. Now I'm just going to start adding the greenery to this. I'm just going to stick some berries in here. And I also grabbed some pine cones when I was out.
Grab some pine cones, place some rocks and a planter, add in some greenery, place the pine cones on top, hot glue together to make them higher, add in some fairy lights. Grab some fresh greenery, cut a strip of fabric or some ribbon, trim the top of the greenery and then place it on top of each other. Secure it together with jute, fasten some pine cones to the greenery using hot glue, tie a ribbon at the top and hang it on your door.
I'm using the same planting formula I used when I'm doing my summer planters, which is thriller, filler, and spiller. I'm going to use this common pine as my spiller. Now that I have it filled in with the pine, I'm going to start adding some different spruces to give it some more height in the middle. I'm going to add just a few sprigs of juniper with some pretty blueberries. I'm taking some large pine cones and I'm going to hot glue the stick onto the pine cones, and I made 2 pine cones for each of my planters. I have some red winter berries we're going to add right in the middle. Now I have some pretty ribbon and I'm going to make a really simple bow to add to the planter. Some branches from my yard, and I'm giving them a coat of copper spray paint. Added a string of lights to my planter, and now I'm just going to pop in those branches.
I'm going to take 2 large pine cones and 2 mini flower pots. I'm going to give it a coat of paint. Next, I'm going to go ahead and take these stamps, and I'm going to just use some white acrylic craft paint. Then I'm going to transfer the stamp to my flower pot. I'm going to go ahead and hot glue the pine cone, and then I'm going to come in with some white craft glue and I'm going to brush it onto the tips. Then I'm going to use this diamond sugar dust, shake off the excess diamond sugar dust, and I'm just simply going to hot glue that onto the top. I'm going to come in with these foam balls, and I'm going to take a large darning needle on some twine. Then I'm going to come in with these smaller pine cones, and I'm going to take a thin crafting wire and I'm going to wrap it around the base of the pine cone. Then I'm going to come in with this wired ribbon. I'm also going to add in a tiny stem of greenery and wrap all this together. And I'm going to wrap this whole piece directly onto the twine. I'm then going to come in with some Mod Podge and then drip over it the diamond sugar dust. I took these longer pine cones and I'm going to come in with some white acrylic craft paint. I'm going to cut a square out of some red fabric, and then I'm going to glue it down one side after I fold it into a triangle. I'm going to cut it into a cone shape. I'm going to flip the hat back inside out. I'm going to glue just a little gold jingle bell just on the tip of the hat. I use a wood bead here and I'm going to glue it directly at the top, leaving enough room for the hat. I'm going to add a string of yarn around the base of the hat.
I started by planting 2 mini pine trees on each side of the window box. Then I placed some cedar and pine sprigs all around the center of the box. I also added in a cedar garland and laid it all around the window box to fill it in more. Once I was happy with the placement of all the greenery, I decided to add in some gold picks. After placing all the picks around the window box, I added in some Christmas lights to give it some extra sparkle at night.
We're going to need some pine cones, some pine needles, pour some water into this bucket. We are going to go and fill this with rocks. We want it to float pretty well, so we don't want it to be touching the bottom. And after those are in, we're going to go and tape this. After the center container is taped in place, we can go and take our pine cones. I put in some acorns, then I put in some of these pine needles and these leaves. Now I can go and take the bucket and freeze it. And you want to freeze it for, we'll say, 48 full hours, just so it fully and totally gets frozen all the way through. And we're going to bring it over to our sink. We want to take off all of these pieces of tape. We can go and start to thaw this out. I am using semi-warm water. After the ice lantern is out of the bucket, then we can go and flip this and remove the plastic piece from the inner portion.